Welcome to Spreading the Floor with your hosts, Jacob Cooperman and Nigel Petty Fernandez. Your go-to podcast for basketball's forecast.
Spreading the Floor, episode 34. I'm your
right.
host, Jacob Cooperman, joined by my co-host, Nigel Petty Fernandez. Nige, as always, we're sitting here, me in my basement, you in your room. We're chopping it up about NBA basketball. Real big week this week. Real big week in the NBA. We gotta talk about some stuff, but also we do have to preview a little bit of an announcement we got going on.
Yeah,
we got something big coming up, man.
we got some big stuff coming up. We got to get some housekeeping out of the way. One thing that I'm excited about is it's the last episode over Zoom.
Come on, man.
Is there one more after this? It's
No.
18.
No. This is
the last one.
Because I wanted to say we're taking a break next week, so we're not gonna be over in Zoom next week. We're gonna be back in the booth at school. Then we're not gonna be back in the booth next week, but the week after that, we are gonna be back in the booth. We have a lot of expansion going on, but also potentially a partnership in the works. So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna spoil too much, but it is a very big announcement. Listen, I'm super duper proud, and we'll probably get more into this on the podcast the first podcast back in school, but I'm super duper proud of us, Nige, as a collective.
I agree.
For not only for making it this far, but man, making it this far when so many people counted us out.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was listening to Intro by Meek Mill on repeat after I learned about the big announcement, because I just felt like you know the vibe that song brings.
Yeah.
It's just like we got counted out, but now we're back. And we're bigger than ever, man. So I'm really excited to get back in the booth, to start doing more stuff, to hopefully this partnership goes as planned. So I'm ecstatic for the future of this podcast. I gotta say.
We're excited, but we want to make sure that we iron out the details before we announce anything crazy. February is looking like a very large month for us. We're going to be making some pushes, a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So we're excited to bring that to you, but and then expect a large announcement coming February, right?
Man.
That's what we gotta say.
I feel like a lot of podcasts make that announcement, but this one, I don't want to say the other ones have been fake, but this is our big, like real big announcement. Can you call it real big, or is it a medium announcement? Is it in between medium and big? What are we thinking?
It's I'd say as far as the timeline goes, it's the biggest one we've had so far.
Yeah.
And to put it in perspective, I'd say we've had large announcements, but this one, February there's a lot being planned from when we finally get back in the booth, which we will be in 2 weeks, and I think that it's gonna be worth it, definitely.
Yeah, I kind of called the shot, though. I just want to say, Nostradamus, and actually not Nostradamus, Nigel, Cook Up Coop, he called the shot for this one. I said 2021 is going to be a big year before we even knew that this was happening. So,
and little did Nostradamus, Nigel, know, there was not much foresight on it. His mind must have been blurry. But Cook Up Coop was cooking up. While Nostradamus Nigel, had blurry vision, Cook Up Coop still had the knives and the forks and the motherfucking spoons. All right, and he was doing what he had to do, and you know what? And that's why we love him, and that's why he's sitting right there.
Listen. It takes two to tango. So we're here, man. Nonetheless, let's give the people what they want. Let's talk about some basketball, man. Let's get into basketball. We obviously gotta give them up front. We gotta talk about this big trade. We gotta talk about this 4-way mega deal trade. I have it on my phone here. We could talk about it. The Brooklyn Nets offered up everything and the kitchen sink for one man, James Harden, the beard, Mr. Thickums, Snackalicious. He's on the Nets, and I gotta say, on his debut with KD, man, he looked dirty. But before we get into that, I want to detail the trade from our friends over at Sideline Sources. The Rockets receive Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. I think it's Royden Crooks. I could be mispronouncing his name. I apologize if I am. 4 first-round picks and 4 pick swaps. The Nets obviously received James Harden. The Cavs Jarrett Allen, Taurean Prince, the Pacers, Caris LeVert, and a second-round pick. We also have to talk about Caris LeVert's, unfortunately, the mass found on his kidney through physicals. So
right, we'll get into all that.
Yeah, I want to. I guess we could start off. We could do the basic bitch thing of podcasting and pretty much of all media. Who do you think won the trade? I wanted to get that out of the way first because I feel like we're pretty good with finding other angles to attack at. But the people that listen to this podcast, at least the ones that I've talked to over the course of the week, they really do want our perspective on it. Nige. They want to know who we think won this trade. Maybe we could do like a 1 and a 2 spot. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I guess if you want to crack it off, you can go first, and then I'll. I have actually a spiel on it that you might not have guessed.
Right. Well, you'll see, and I think a big problem with basketball media in general is that a lot of people think of these things in black and white, which is just not true, right?
Yeah.
And hindsight is always 2020. But the goal of any NBA team is to win a championship, to bring it home for the city, right? And they now possess, 3 superstars of our generation, three men who will go down as top 10 basketball players of the 2010s. They have 3 of them in their primes on their team all at the same time. However, they traded away their future.
They traded away a busload of stuff for them.
Now, what I think is interesting is that there are comparisons to be drawn in the 2010 trade or 2011 trade.
You're talking about ISO Joe and a washed up Kevin Garnett. Yeah, Paul Pierce. Yeah, that trade. Yeah, Kevin Garnett. There's definitely tons of comparisons you can make. I think the main difference, and I'll let you get in your spiel in a second. The main difference for me is the age and the talent. As you said, these guys, I think this is probably the most historic trio in NBA history. Can we say that?
It's up there.
It's got to be. In terms of, I know in terms of accolades, this team has everyone trumped. I'm talking about they're I think the total amount of accolades for this trio alone, talking about nobody else on the team, just the 3 gentlemen, KD, Kyrie, and Harden, is in the 70s, if not 80s. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, yeah. Well, obviously hindsight is 2020. We got to see where I'm excited to see where this team ends up. Now we're talking about whoever wins. Now this is one of those situations where if Brooklyn doesn't win rings, at least one, they lost. It was a bad trade, bad move. Yeah. However, if they get gold out of it, if they bring home the Larry O'Brien from now within the next 3-4 years, it will be looked at as a success.
I don't agree with that. And I know what you mean long term, but I think that the Nets have put so much unnecessary pressure on themselves with this mega trade, right? They gave away their future. We both know that. They gave away their bench, their depth, their defense. I think with the way that this big 3 has been hyped up, even before the season, I completely agree with your sentiment, Nigel, about, listen, long term, we need to be bringing in, if we're the Nets, we need to be bringing in the next 2 to 3 years at least one. I think, and this is probably also a knock on the NBA media or a strike against the NBA media, the way that everyone's going to hype this team up, and I already saw Stephen A. Smith today because I was doing homework for the podcast, coming on, Kyrie Irving should retire last week. This week, Harden comes on, plays well. I mean, credit to him with KD, and he goes, yeah, this team's destined to go to the finals. So we know how knee-jerk NBA media can be.
Yeah.
I think this team this year, if they do not hoist the trophy, the NBA Finals trophy, the media will consider it at least as a bust, right? Because that's just when you have a team this overpowered, in theory, with glaring problems with defense and depth, but a team with 3 guys of this caliber, I mean, and considering just the moves that were made on an organizational level, you gotta at least, I mean, and think about the scenes if they don't make it into the playoffs. I mean, that's probably not going to happen, but
no.
I'd say there's a lot more pressure than just in the next 2 to 3 or even 4 years.
All right. Well, let me hit you with this counter argument.
Okay.
When LeBron James put together his big 3 and went down to South Beach, infamous move. They lost the NBA Finals that year to the Dallas
they did have trouble
Mavericks.
out of the gate for sure. Yeah.
They lost the NBA Finals that year. However, 10 years removed, we do not think back to that Miami team as a failure. We think of that as a successful team. They had a disappointing season at the very beginning, and they also had a disappointing season at the very end. But you think back to that big three, and they won 3 rings together, right? I don't
True.
like what we might if KD, Kyrie, and James Harden do not win a ring this year, we are not gonna think we'll think back as like, wow, that's disappointing, definitely. But as long as they perform within the parameters of their primes, which is what they're going to be ending their primes on this team. We'll think back to KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. Like they had one hell of a prime. They were able to pull in 2 rings. That's more than anyone could ask for in the NBA. James Harden has 0 rings. Kyrie has 1. KD has 2.
Yeah, but also I feel like the talent level. And don't get me wrong. Listen, if we're talking about Bosh, Wade, and LeBron, correct?
That's correct.
I think LeBron is for sure in that conversation that KD, Kyrie, and Harden are both in, or all 3 of them are in.
Yeah.
Wade is a terrific player. In fact, you might be able to slot him up in that argument. I'd say you put him a slight tier under, maybe.
Yes,
I think he's a superstar. There's like superstar and then generational player.
Right.
All 3 of those gentlemen on the Nets right now are generational players. Bosh, I'm sorry, I don't put him in the. I put him maybe at a star, maybe, right? I think like Bosh in his prime, sure, but over time, I just think that the skill level on the Nets is different.
It's higher.
It's higher. It's slightly comparable, sure, but there's so much more riding on this Nets team. Because of, like I just said, the skill level, but also we have to take into account, and this is what we're good at again, the fact that Kyrie Irving is just a cancer, and everyone wants to see him fail. You know what I'm saying? And
everyone does want to see him fail,
but sometimes it's his fault. Listen, Harden didn't handle that Rockets exit the best, but he's happier now. And in fact, I caught myself smiling when I saw Harden smiling too. I didn't know Harden had such an infectious smile, but he does. So it seems like Harden's happy. And obviously, like KD's kind of had that bell curve with the way people have viewed him, at least the way I viewed him. And as you can see from the plaque right there, I am an Oklahoma City Thunder fan. I view KD way more favorably now. I just think that with those personalities, right, and their history in the NBA with the media, I think people are in a way waiting for them to fail. So there's that added extra bit of pressure there, of tension that I think you have to figure in, or you have to factor in, excuse me. That's just me though. That's why I think the stakes are a little bit higher. I'm not disagreeing with you, Nige. I think if they take in an NBA Finals trophy or 2 over the next, you said 4 years, that's an accomplishment for sure. Because you make it to the chip, you win the chip. That's the overall goal, as we know, as NBA fans. That's the overall goal. So to do that once and especially twice is great. But I just feel like I know the NBA media and I know NBA fans, and I know how they're going to view this. It's going to be this year or bust. I mean, just think about the Clippers, right? They were supposed to be, last year it was supposed to be the battle for LA. And they absolutely crashed and burned. And now nobody's letting them off the hook.
No,
even though they have a really serviceable team this year. PG's still catching flack. I mean, I know how this works. So that's where I'm coming from personally. I just feel like a lot of people are going to put a lot of unnecessary pressure on this Brooklyn Nets team now.
Yeah. Well, now the Clippers don't have a fucking prayer. I mean, they got to get past the Lakers and the Nets.
That's crazy.
Sheesh. They can barely get past the Nugs.
Ty Lue's punching the air right now, like, damn it, man.
Yeah, for real. No, but I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. I also think that the league is in 2 different places now than it was back when LeBron made the big 3 move down to Miami. I think there was more hate. So I think more people wanted to see that Miami team fail. Just because of what surrounded, that he had the announcement. He had that like show where him, D-Wade, and Bosh went on stage, and there was like fire coming out of the stage. And he was like, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. People wanted to see that team fail. I also think that the NBA fans are much more accepting of big superstars making big moves like this. Like this trade would not be even possible back in 2005. Adam Silver would have had to put a hold on it. He would have said, "There's no way that James Harden's going to that team." The NBA is in a different position than it was back then. Fans are much more accepting. I think that this team's expectations are higher because the three players' skill level, I think, add up to more than James Harden, than Dwayne Wade, LeBron, and Chris Bosh. I think I do agree with you that Chris Bosh doesn't catch the weight that Kyrie and KD do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
However, I think that more people want to see this team do big things. I think you're right. It's a chip or bust type of year, but I think that people will be looking at this. Like, I think people are happy that this is happening for the Nets right now.
I personally don't think it's a chip or bust year. I just think that a lot of people would tend to believe that, right? That's just me. But I can see what you're saying too. It's definitely a different league. It's more of a players league now, so you have to factor that all in. And yeah, man, I don't know. Something tells me that if you want me to try to predict how successful they're going to be this year, I mean, yeah, they're a playoff team for sure. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind about that. Even without the only thing really standing in their way is defense. They got to figure out their defense, because when you go up against a team like the Bucks or the Lakers, and they're so, well, I know the Lakers are very consistent. The Bucks might be a little bit less consistent just based off of what we've seen at the beginning of the season. Those teams still, though, the point stands that they're very, very potent defensively and offensively. So I'm interested to see where the Brooklyn Nets land. It's going to be situational for sure. It's definitely going to be it's going to be a wild closing to the NBA season. And I think, honestly, if the Nets don't get it this year, sure, they could come back big next year, and they might even the draft still exists.
Oh yeah.
The draft still exists. You could pick up some low draft picks, and you know what I'm saying, you could potentially, if you're drafting right, if your drafting is good enough, you could find a diamond in the rough or two. That's what happened with Peyton Pritchard this year. He's been really balling out for the Celtics. I mean, it's happened before. Guys in the second round. There's actually been some really notable guys in the second round. So, and that's, again, the entire argument I just made is depending on whether or not the Nets actually hold a high seed and make it far in the, but we don't know. But I thought it was very telling that people, like, especially Stephen A. We know Stephen A. He likes to scream. He likes to contradict himself. Same with Max Kellerman. I mean, they get paid to do that, but I thought it was indicative of the NBA community when he was sitting there one day saying Kyrie Irving should retire, which I actually don't agree with. Hot take. I know we usually shit on Kyrie on the show. And then coming out, next week, and he's saying, okay, now the Nets are favorites to win the NBA Finals. I don't see how he could be neglecting the fact that they gave up so much of their depth. They gave up all of their depth and all of their future. Yeah. It's a risky move, for sure.
I personally, take the 2017 Warriors over this Nets team.
See, now I'm like, I could shit talk this Nets team all I want, but then when I'm presented with the option to choose another team, I'm like, well, I don't know. They do have Harden, KD, and Kyrie.
Yeah, but I think that with this Nets team right now, this year, as we are speaking, I take the 2017 Warriors.
Yeah, they're much more consistent. Warriors actually in 2017 didn't really have that much depth, or at least if that's a correct Warriors team I'm thinking of.
They didn't have. I'm talking about injured DeMarcus Cousins, KD, Steph Curry.
Oh yeah. So they didn't really have much depth.
Klay Thompson, and then they had no names coming off the bench. But
yeah.
I'd still take that team over this team as we see it. I think this team needs some time to develop and grow. I think that team had better chemistry.
Yes.
I also think that 2017 Warriors team there were bigger expectations put on that team than this team, in my opinion.
The Warriors of 2017?
Yes, because they were just coming off the best season in NBA history. They just lost the finals to LeBron. And then for the first time in NBA history, you see a top 3 player in the league go to the best team in NBA history.
And create just a mega
and
team.
create something unstoppable. They
Yeah.
went, and I don't think they. I think that team lost one game the entire playoffs, and it was so that they could win their chip at home.
Well, I also think that team was so hated by everyone too. Like,
Yeah.
let's not forget about that. In the same way, they might have been actually hated more than this Nets team is. Because
I don't think this Nets. Go ahead.
I was gonna say this Nets team, realistically, outside of this year, they haven't had that much success. Well, I mean, they have had some success. They were the 8th seed, and they were kind of the fun underdog team to root for. They had Karis LeVert. They had that D'Lo squad, D'Angelo Russell squad for the Nets
Yeah,
was a
classic.
fun Nets team to listen to watch. You know what I'm saying? To root for. So I think you might be right actually, and I think in terms of consistency and just as you said, chemistry. That Golden State team, and just think about like ball movement. I mean, the Nets this year early have looked really, really solid with ball movement. It almost reminded me of like the Golden State Warriors of old because he would kick it out to the corner. Joe Harris would be there. You kick it back out to KD. KD kicks it out to Kyrie. Kyrie drives in, kicks it back out to KD. KD takes the open three. It's even like that now with Harden. I'd say even more so because Harden last night or 2 nights ago, whenever they played against the Magic, I watched that game. And my mind is failing me. My memory is failing me. But man, Harden looked like a facilitator. So it reminds me of that offense in a way. So you're right. I might actually, upon further thought, I might give that spot to the Golden State Warriors. That those record breaking boys, and they add I mean, KD was on that team too.
I think there was more riding on that team. Yeah. In my opinion, I think the entire basketball world was shook, and they hated that team so much. They wanted nothing more than to see that team fail, and that team did nothing but succeed. Now, with this Nets team, I know that they have been getting, people have been disapproving and everything, but overall, I haven't seen much, especially not compared to like KD going to the Warriors in 2017 or LeBron going to the Heat in 2010. This Nets team so far it's only been like less than a week, but I haven't seen much hate. I haven't seen many people being like, "Oh, these people need." People were burning jerseys for Harden, but the Rockets made him a movie.
Yeah.
For like as a thank you goodbye thing. You know what I'm saying? Like there was not much bad blood in this blockbuster move.
I think the bad blood though would happen after the fact. Again, pending the result of how this Nets team does, because I think I've said it 4 times this podcast alone, and probably 16 times over the course of the other podcasts. NBA fans, they flip flop, right? You do well, and you could be considered likable one day and totally hateable the next. It's just the nature of the game. So all I'm saying is, while there might not be any hate now, there might be adoration and a little bit of controversy, obviously, around this team with Kyrie not showing up and Harden with the whole thing that happened with him not showing up to practices and then saying that he wanted out of Houston. There's controversy, sure, but at the moment, I think people are more waiting on what this Harden led, but probably more KD led, this Harden, KD, and Kyrie team will end up doing. If Kyrie even manages to come back, because he's questionable I think it's today they're playing the Bucks, actually. The Nets were supposed to play the Bucks today. So he was questionable today. I don't even know if he's playing today. So there's a lot of question marks around this team. I don't think anyone really has the ability or the room to hate at the moment, because we're kind of, I'll speak for myself here, and you let me know if you agree, Nigel. I was watching with bated breath. I was waiting for that Orlando Nets game. This is the second time I've tuned into a Nets game on Yes, and I'm just so confused. But I was waiting with bated breath to see Harden and KD play together, and it was
me too. Yeah, it was gorgeous.
So there's a lot of question marks around this team right now, and I think people are more bedazzled by 3. I mean, it's so. Listen, we can talk about too the Golden State Warriors. Everyone hated them, but at the end of the day, it was some sick basketball to watch.
Oh, the best, yeah, top 3 NBA teams of all time. Period.
So you're eating popcorn. You're watching these teams spread out the ball, shoot threes. I mean, they have it all. So it's at the end of the day, these teams, the Nets, the Golden State Warriors, probably the Lakers, they're going to draw asses to seats. I think people are just more enthralled at this moment. But once that not enthrall wears off, but once the magic wears off, and let's just say they don't manage to win the chip. I think a lot of people are going to be saying, bust.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they got 3 superstars. They couldn't even get it done. Bust.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. That's fair, though.
You think so?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, you should be winning.
So
you should be winning championships. You should be winning at least 2 in 4 years.
Okay, so that's I was going to say, because I remember you originally said 2 in 4 years.
I'd say 2 in 4 years is the minimum. What's
the maximum?
4 in 4 years. I think they should be winning. They should win 4 in 4 years. I think they should.
You think they get past the Lakers?
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that this team should win 4 championships in a row.
Well, no, I was more. I mean, that wasn't like a counterpoint to your argument or like a gotcha moment. I was genuinely like, do you think that they get past the Lakers?
I think there's one thing I want to talk about before I talk about them going up against the Lakers, the favorites in the West, of course.
Right.
But I think that this team's ceiling is 4 championships in 4 years. They have I think that there's enough talent on that team that they could be the first team in NBA history since the invention of the shot clock to win 4 chips in a row. 2 back-to-backs.
So that's their ceiling. Is that what you're saying? Like
that's the ceiling. That's the most that they will do.
Okay. So what do you? Okay. So you think
I think the minimum that the lowest that they can do and still be successful is 2 in 4 years. If they win 1, it's like good, but they really should have won more than 1. I think me and you both know that they should be winning more than 1 ring.
Yeah. Listen, when you have 3 guys as talented as they are, I mean, I'd like to see them get a little bit more depth, and again, defense. Then that'll we could transition with that over into the Lakers conversation, because that's what the Lakers have now. Well, actually, no, the Lakers aren't that good defensively either, now that I think about it. But it just comes down to, at that point, consistency, right?
Yeah.
We always talk about this in terms of teams and their consistency on the court and their ability to get it done over a 7-game stretch. The Nets versus the Lakers, I might, as ludicrous as it sounds, and I know they're going to have this power 3 if Kyrie comes back, I might give it to the Lakers still. I know that's like a major hot take, but I think, listen, LeBron and AD, 2 guys, as we've discussed in the past, that if they turn it on, it's insane to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Lakers.
Lakers team reloaded offensively. Sure, they sacrificed defense, but the Nets don't have any defense either. So I think then you have to look into which team is more consistent.
They have defense. The Nets have defense. They have a little bit.
Who do they have on defense?
KD can defend.
I mean, and I will actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I will give Harden his props. He looked good defensively when in his debut.
He's stepping it up a little bit.
But also, do you think that that's enough to get past LeBron? Like LeBron on KD. KD will drop, let's say, 20 to 30 points on LeBron, but then you have to worry about Anthony Davis. You have to. I'm just saying. I think the defensive matchups on the Lakers would for me, I would give the tip of the cap to the Lakers in that situation, and consistency wise, because they reloaded offensively, and the Lakers, even without the progress they made this year in terms of their personnel, damn, my arm's looking real swole. without the improvements they made in terms of personnel this year, I think they were really consistent without that, and they've only gotten better. So, yeah, I'd still give it to the Lakers, honestly.
I agree. I'd still give it to the Lakers as well. If we're just talking about this year, I feel like they just don't have an answer for Anthony Davis. You can guard LeBron all you want, but you're not putting James. It doesn't matter how many James Harden, Kyrie Irvings you have on your team.
Oh yeah, no.
There is no stopping Anthony Davis, especially now that they lost the Fro. I forgot his name.
Jared Allen, one of the best young rim protectors in the league. Unfortunately, he's now on the Cavs.
Jared Allen has, and the Cavs are starting to stack up a little bit too on those young players. We'll get into that another time though. But no, I think that the Lakers definitely take that. Now, but what I wanted to talk about a little bit before I go ahead and break down my whole Lakers thing is that I think we talked about this a little bit. Is I think that the success of this Nets team rides 100% on Kyrie Irving's ability to live up to his potential.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I was gonna say, can Kyrie Irving become the third option gracefully? Because Kyrie Irving is the third option on that team.
Yeah, maybe the second.
No, he's not. He's a point guard.
Yeah, but also I think we're beginning to kind of transition into a more positionless game, but that's not really applicable. What I'm saying is Harden has shown us that he can play a more docile role while still putting up big numbers. He can play more of a facilitator-esque role. That for me would maybe put him in that third spot. I don't hate the fact that you'd have Kyrie at the third spot. I just think, and I don't mean like positionally, I just mean as like the third option. I just think you could do either way, really. In terms of Kyrie showing up, I mean, Kyrie, when he's on the court, me and my mom talked about this. He's like Dennis Rodman. He really is, except I think Dennis Rodman has a much more positive outlook on things. Kyrie, when he shows up, will do great things for you.
Yes, absolutely.
That is a given. Death, taxes, and the fact that Kyrie will ball out when he's on the court.
Absolutely.
And I like what you said, gracefully. Will he do it gracefully? I think that's what you said. Something along those lines. Tactfully, gracefully. No. That's something you have to take into account if you're the Nets now, because we've seen from what has transpired this week, him getting fined $50K. We got to talk about him buying George Floyd's family a house, because I think that's actually pretty nice. But him sacrificing some of his pay, somewhere in the realm of around $800,000 of his docked pay, because he missed. It was 4 straight, or even I think now it's 5 or 6 straight. If he misses tonight, it's either going to be 5 or 6 straight games. So if you're talking about whether or not Kyrie's going to show up, that's a completely different beast, because I now don't know if Kyrie feels, and a lot of people talk about the effect that Harden coming to the Nets has had on Kyrie. What if this makes Kyrie feel like he doesn't even need to show up, because they played very well together? Yeah. Just Harden and KD. Yeah. Does this make Kyrie feel like, hey man, now I can take more vacations. I can go party maskless now. It's sick. It's great. I don't know. I don't know how Kyrie thinks. I think that he thinks this is some sort of game. Okay. What it is, but
let me ask you this. Game on the line. And as a wise man once said,
Iguodala.
The aliens got the death beam pointed at Earth. Okay? Mm-hmm. There's 3 seconds left on the clock, and you're down by 2 points. Who's taking the shot? KD, James Harden, or Kyrie Irving?
KD.
Okay, now let's say KD isn't playing. Who takes the shot?
Harden.
There you go. Kyrie's the third option.
No, there you go. You just tricked me into.
That's it. That was
sneaky.
That was sneaky. It's true though. It's true. Who's taking? And because that's what, when you're talking about these big superstar players with huge egos, huge heads, that's what we're really talking about. I don't think they really care about who's. I think they're all gonna, like you said, James Harden is very docile. I think they're all willing to sacrifice some stats for the sake of the betterment of the team. But when it really comes down to where the superstar mentality comes in, where you're talking about the generational talents, what mattered to Michael Jordan taking the last shot? You know what I'm saying? What mattered to Kobe Bryant taking the last shot? Now, if you tell me that you think that any of them are going to be willing to give up the few, the few times this season where there is going to be a last shot,
right?
I can't get behind it, and I think that Kyrie Irving is going to suffer, because his numbers already aren't. James Harden known for averaging 35 points over the span of 4 months. KD can average above 30 points per game, no problem, when he's on his own team. You know what I'm saying? Kyrie never really did that. Kyrie doesn't have any scoring titles. Kyrie Irving doesn't have any MVPs. Yeah. KD has 2 finals MVPs. You know what I'm saying? So if the person furthest in the back of in this trio is Kyrie Irving, and that's maybe for the best, because he's proved that he's not the best leader. However, I do believe that if Kyrie Irving can't get his head around that, if he does not grow up, if he does not accept this and move forward for the betterment of the team, that we're not talking about a big 3. We're talking about a big 2, because Kyrie Irving will do things to, he may begin to think that in order to keep his numbers up, the only solution is to ball hog.
Jack up shots, yeah. Well,
And
that's also
right. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's also a potential opportunity. I mean, reality. Could be a sure thing, a done deal, an inescapable reality where Kyrie is just, when he gets the ball, wants to. And I think if I could be, I don't know if I'm quoting correctly here, but I remember I was talking to a friend. Maybe it was Max from the Noise Media. Go check them out. They're blowing up on Instagram. He said, and he is a Nets fan, he said that if you look, quarter by quarter in terms of possession, Kyrie is in the fourth quarter. I mean, he takes the most touches out of the entire team. So
rightfully so, though.
I'd rather have KD taking that last shot, but sure, if you want to have a guy that's going to be the second option and he feels like he can make that last shot, sure, Kyrie can take that. I don't know if I'd have him taking him at the volume that he does, but he is an option. You might have some cadence to your point there, where Kyrie feels as though, hey, I'm not getting the ball enough. And then, taking that a step further, maybe that rubs off on Harden a little bit. Maybe then Harden is sitting there like, well, I want the ball. I want the ball late game situation so I can do a tween step back. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know. I think it was actually, we got so much to talk about this podcast, but Matt Barnes, this just actually reminded me, Matt Barnes was talking on Instagram. He said, trade Kyrie, because I think it was an ESPN post, or Shannon Sharp had posted something about how he loved the way that Harden and KD had played together. And not Shannon Sharp, Matt Barnes from the All the Smoke podcast, retired player, played on the Lob City Clippers, came out and said that he thought they should trade away Kyrie for depth. I think that's, by the way, I mean, listen, I respect Matt Barnes as an analyst and as a basketball podcaster. That's one of the dumbest takes I've ever heard. That's like sitting there and it's not dumb. Like, I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, think about how that would kind of like rub off on the Nets organization, where they go out, they spend a shit ton of money on KD and Kyrie, bring in Harden, and then immediately trade Kyrie away. I understand what he's done is less than acceptable, but if you're going to try to formulate this big three, this historic big three with so many expectations on them, as we talked about time and time again on this podcast, I mean, I'm not trading him away immediately. That was just something that I wanted to bring up that I had remembered, but yeah, man, Kyrie could definitely present some issues on this team. That's for sure. I don't doubt it.
I have a question about what Matt Barnes said. I obviously think there's zero chance that the Nets trade him away.
Yeah, no way.
But I want to ask you, say that you are the Nets GM and 76ers contacted you and said, we will give you Joel Embiid for Kyrie Irving. Is that, I know on paper, no, really? Okay.
I'll tell you why. Joel Embiid is he's not like Kyrie Irving. I know he's a hothead and he's a loudmouth, but he doesn't really show up in shape. He's a very talented big.
No, neither is James Harden.
What's up?
Neither is James Harden.
Well, James Harden showed up in shape to Brooklyn. I don't know how he did that. He somehow managed to shapeshift his way onto the Brooklyn court, looking about 15 pounds lighter. That's a conversation for another podcast. But the thing with me is, actually, well, if you factor in, this is off the dome, people. We're thinking about this live on air. We don't script any of this. That's why I'm thinking right now.
All right, what else?
Go ahead.
I want to let you talk. I'm going to suggest something else. What if you get contacted by the Miami Heat?
Okay.
And they send you Bam and Tyler Hero for Kyrie Irving.
That I might even do Joel Embiid, honestly, because I was thinking just strictly Kyrie's court presence, the way he plays the game, that's invaluable. But then I started to think about the fact that he was partying maskless with his sister and father when he should have been playing games and not contacting coaching staff and not contacting the organization. I might actively, because then, you have Bam coming up. Well, I don't know who they would start at the one spot for Kyrie. Shoot.
Harden's a fine point guard.
Yeah, Harden could play a good point guard position. I think you'd have some depth coming off the bench. And then you could take out DeAndre Jordan for Joel Embiid. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely consider it. It wouldn't be something that I would just pass up on immediately. Unfortunately, if Kyrie had kept his mouth, listen, I'm never the guy to be like, shut up and dribble. I've said that on this podcast before. But if Kyrie hadn't done the stuff that he'd done, and we've has shown us the stuff that he's shown us, that wouldn't even be a question in my mind. Kyrie, I'm keeping. But unfortunately, that's just not the reality that we're faced with.
Right, and I think Stephen A. put it very well on his show where he said, obviously, basketball is not what's on the forefront of Kyrie Irving's mind right now. Basketball is not really what's important to him. When you can do all the things in the world for any reason, you can help whoever you want, but when you have a job to do, you have a job to do, and there's a fine line between, letting that get in your way and doing both. Kyrie Irving has not proved that he can be the face of an organization, which is why he wanted KD there. Now there's two people that are better than him on this team, which is his worst nightmare. This is the first time this ever happened in his career.
You think Harden's better than Kyrie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Harden is a lot better than Kyrie. I think Kyrie is very good, but I think James Harden is the better basketball player. I think James Harden carries way more weight. I don't think Kyrie Irving...
he does. He's fat as hell. No, I'm playing.
I don't think Kyrie Irving equates to as many wins as James Harden does. You know what I'm saying? I don't think, I think James Harden is carrying this Nets team further with KD than Kyrie. And you know what? If I'm Steve Nash, as punishment, I might consider making Kyrie come off with a second unit for a couple games.
Well, that would just hurt the team. Well, no, actually, maybe it wouldn't hurt.
I don't know if that hurt the. I think that would help them. I think they would do great things because they have a weak second squad at the moment, and you have Kyrie out there, and he can be the main scorer. He can be the man on the court scoring, but then Kyrie doesn't get in the way of the KD and James Harden chemistry that goes all the way back to 2013.
I guess it doesn't really matter where you slot a guy like Kyrie. He'll give you buckets regardless. I want to go back. James Harden has shown us, he looked good defensively the other night. Besides that, he's shown us that he's not that good of a defensive point guard. Kyrie's okay. I think Harden's the better scorer. And I think in terms of leading, I think even though Harden listen, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place because both these guys have showed us that they can be a little bit cancerous. But I might give the better player spot to Harden. I think that so much of Kyrie's game now has become his off the court antics, which is crazy to think about, but it's almost inescapable. When you talk about this guy's conduct, you have to talk about the way he performs off the court. Yeah. The way he acts off the court, and of course the way he performs on the court has to be taken into account too. But still, it's weird that you even have to factor that in. With Harden, you don't really have to talk about what happened in Houston. It's going to be there forever regardless. But I think a lot of people view that as, listen, he gave a lot to the city. He just wanted to move on. He didn't feel like he wanted a chip. I can actually respect that. I don't like the way he handled leaving, but I know why he left and I respect it. But with Kyrie, it's just, you can't go into his actions and dissect why he does why he does what he does or why he acts the way he acts. It's just, it's almost outside of the social justice stuff. It's almost meaningless. Yeah. The social justice stuff has meaning. I don't want to say that it doesn't have meaning, but outside of that, it's like, don't you want to play basketball? Yeah. Is there any inclination in your mind at all to want to play basketball? So, yeah, at the moment, I'd honestly give it to Harden, but maybe like Cleveland Cavaliers, Kyrie, if he kept progressing and kept that same, mentality, I'd probably give that to him, but that's a hypothetical situation. So we'll never know with that one. But go ahead. My fault. I didn't mean to go off on a little tangent there.
No, I think that was a great tangent, and I think you highlighted some great points. But I personally think that James Harden is the better scorer. I think that Kyrie Irving probably is a better facilitator, but I think that James Harden can do it at a high clip. I think that James Harden is so good that doesn't really make that big of a difference. And I think that James Harden's better on defense. I know that he has those funny clips where he's like not paying attention and stuff like that. But I think if both players, Kyrie and James Harden, wanted to go out there and play the best defense possible, James Harden's winning that battle 10 times out of 10.
Could be.
You know what I'm saying? And listen, it was a huge move. It was a huge move. It was a blockbuster trade. It's going to be, every couple of years there's that move that really makes people's jaw drops. You had LeBron going to the Heat in 2010. You had KD going to the Warriors in 2016. And now you have James Harden going to the Nets in 2021. Those are the three things that we talk about, and that's a whole decade worth of trades. Those are the three that our mind will think back to when we think about this generation of basketball players.
This might be one of the biggest trades ever. This might be one of the biggest moves ever.
It's definitely up there. It's definitely top 5. I think there are comparable things, but this is definitely top 5 most groundbreaking trades in NBA history. I think this goes up there with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar going from the Bucks to the Lakers. I think this goes up there with. Well, I mean, when you say trades, you're talking about strictly just trades.
Well, I guess I said trades and I said moves. I think in terms of like this makes waves because everyone talks about it for good reason. Yeah. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. You're getting these guys, these 3 guys. We won't rehash. I'm not going to go back and state what I already stated, but we know why this is such a big blockbuster move. It's 3 of the most prolific guys in the NBA, or not 3 of the most prolific, but in that conversation for most prolific guys in the NBA. All of those guys, pure scorers. I mean, just absolutely finesse-tastic. Can I make that a word? Finesse-tastic on the ball?
It's a thing. Put it on a shirt.
Listen, we generate shirts at a crazy clip.
Make it happen, bro. That's how you make it official.
Listen. We got Schmuck Uprising and Finesse-tastic. No, all those guys are just so fun to watch on the ball. And I guess also if you factor in legacy too. I mean, there's a lot riding. All these guys have their own not identical, but their own distinct personalities, their own distinct personality traits. The way that they handle things is very unique to them, for better or for worse. But yeah, I mean, listen, this is going down all time. I just wanted to talk about 2 because we are really getting up there in time. This podcast, we're at the 45-minute mark now.
We've only covered one thing.
I want to talk about the rest of this trade real quick, and then we can move on. We can honestly, we could just talk about some of the Corona positive tests and obviously Cat testing positive. We can talk about the second wave of all that in a second, but I just want to, along with the we got to talk about the whole Kevin Porter Jr. situation, which is actually kind of hilarious. I just real quick, I wanted to touch on the rest of that trade because if I'm remembering correctly, we were going to say who we thought won the trade. I don't know if we ever really actually said who we thought won the trade. I think kind of, I mean, I could almost guess who you think won the trade. Is it the Nets?
I mean, I chalked it up to we have to see, but I'd say right now the Nets won the trade.
The Nets. Okay. I could see definitely the Nets winning the trade if all things go according to plan. But if not, a dark horse pick would probably, not even a dark horse pick, but my second runner-up would probably be the Rockets. I was going to make a real campaign for the Pacers. We also got to talk about Karis LeVert with the small lump found on his kidney. That's absolutely horrible. Funnily enough, someone on Instagram said that a routine physical could have saved this man's life, but we'll get to that in a second. I think the Rockets side of it, I mean, either way you slice this 4-way mega deal, I think everyone gets something of value.
Yeah.
You could talk about the downsides all you want. You could talk about legacy. You could talk about who's going to fumble the bag, who's not making it into the playoffs. I mean, the Pacers are solid. They're 8-5. Let me just check here. I want to make sure I'm correct. As of recording, the Pacers are, 8-5 on the season. So they've only improved. Hopefully Karis LeVert if he comes back, I mean, he's a great scorer, great young talent. So they've only improved. the Rockets. They get Victor Oladipo. He's coming off of injury, but you combine it with Boogie and John Wall and Christian Wood and all those boys they have over there. The Rockets, to me, are a playoff team now. They have a large amount of draft picks in the future, too, that they stole from the Nets. The Cavs, Taurean Prince and Jared Allen, that improves their situation defensively. They have like 17 bigs now. You know what I'm saying? Sexland is going to be surrounded by trees, as I saw one person say on Instagram. But yeah, I mean, listen. Either way you slice this trade, it was a good trade all around, which is not something you always see with these blockbuster mega deals. You see maybe like 2 or 3 teams make way like Bandits, and then one that doesn't really have the pull to be involved in the trade like that, but gets involved anyways. You know, they give away some key pieces, but no, everyone really. I think it was solid all the way around. There you go, all the way around.
Yeah. I'm also interested in to see, what our viewers think. So if you have an opinion or you have a take on it, go ahead. Just, drop it down in the comments if you're listening on YouTube or on Instagram or something, But I think that with something so big, did you want to talk about the kidney growth on LeVert?
Well, I mean, that factors into the trade, obviously, because I hate to view it like that because of a player's health should be paramount over everything, but it does bear mentioning that if his health is in long-term jeopardy, I mean that he's not going to be active on the court. He's out indefinitely. So, the Pacers didn't really. I guess I'm assuming the fact that everyone made out like bandits on the fact that Karis LeVert will be back and healthy. I'm kind of banking on that. But if he doesn't come back healthy, the Pacers really got fucked. Karis LeVert got fucked. I don't think it's really. I hope it's nothing too serious. I hope it's benign. I hope it's not cancer. Kidney cancer is obviously serious as any cancer is. But I mean, listen, prayers up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Prayers up.
It is a business, and I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play another game this season, just from the severity of what's happening and how quick this season is actually going to finish. It is an accelerated. We're missing 10 games already. So I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play another game this season. And even if he was ready to come back and play another game, I wouldn't be surprised if they tell him, hey, just go rest, do what you got to do, come back strong. If I'm the Pacers, I think that might be what I tell a player like that. But
well, if it's benign, then he shouldn't have a problem with coming back and playing. I think really what they're worried about is if it's cancerous. That's the worst thing. When you find a lump on anything, your automatic go-to, it's like, oh shit, I hope this isn't cancer. So if it's just an extra bit of I really don't know how physiology or the body operates, but I know that there can just be benign lumps of cells that build up and form. I hope it's that. And if in that case it is that, then he could become active for this Pacers team. They've, again, been playing really well. So if they add Karis LeVert to that, are they a playoff team? Maybe. Are they a playoff team now? Maybe.
Yeah, I think they're in that limbo kind of stage.
They're on the better side of the East right now. But the East, may I remind you, the same as the West, is going to be going all over the place the entire season. Nobody knows what's really going on. But I did want to also, I wanted to include the segment because I don't think, I did open up the segment saying that this was going to affect the trade value for the Pacers. No, I mean, listen, we shouldn't view this as, we shouldn't view it through the lens of the business aspect of basketball. We should view this more as, I hope, and I think we are. That's what we're doing at the moment.
I agree. I think everyone is too. I think everyone's kind of thinking about him and stuff.
So, listen, this is basketball. This is bigger than basketball. Basketball doesn't matter when something like this is on the horizon, and we don't really have a concrete answer to what the lump is at this moment. They're going to do another checkup soon, so I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm going to keep myself updated on the situation that it's not cancerous and he can return to play and keep blossoming into the great player that we knew he was going to be on Brooklyn and now on the Pacers.
Right, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
There is a lot of sickness going around this year. I mean, we want to touch on, there was a while that the 76ers, most of the roster was out with COVID, and now Karl Anthony Towns came down with COVID.
Yeah. More
Do you know
games being
how that
postponed.
happened? Do you know how that happened?
I do not know how that happened. I know he tested positive, but I've been kind of keeping up with that, and I know all of the games that have been postponed. For instance, like the Philadelphia 76ers and the Oklahoma City Thunder game has been postponed, and there have been players that have tested positive for a second wave of tests. So they tested positive the first time, second wave came in, they tested positive again. There's been that. I don't know how Cat tested positive. Either way, fuck COVID. Like it took out his entire family, and now it has the gall, the nerve to come back and try to make a run at Cat. All I could say is, man, prayers up. In Cat's situation as well. It's a little different for him. Obviously, he's a professional athlete, so he should be okay. I want to knock on wood. He should be all right. Yeah. I want to knock on wood, but
he'll be fine. I feel bad for him. His mom passed away from COVID.
A lot of his family did. 6 or 7 family members.
No way. Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought it was just his mom.
No, a lot of his family unfortunately passed away from COVID. So that's why it's extra. It's like an extra added bit of I want to say salt on the wound. That's a good expression. Like adding insult to injury is like not only did his entire family, damn near his entire family catch it, they also died from it. And now it's coming back for him. I just think that's like really, that's like, hey, my 2020 was bad. No, look at Karl Anthony Towns' 2020 into 2021 experience.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how he got it. I hope that he wasn't being unsafe, because that would be very irresponsible of him, especially with what happened. I don't think that he's the type to do that. I think he has a very high standing. He has a very high character. He's a very good guy. I think he's intelligent as well. So it was probably something like, swiped up against another player who had it, or he got on the team bus or a plane or something in that respect.
I'd be willing to bet. I would be willing to bet that probably came somewhere from his family, visiting them, making sure they're okay. I mean, that's the obvious option. It could be that he got it off of someone that, again, tested positive later on in a COVID test for the NBA. But if I had to put my money on it, I'd probably say he got it from being around his family. Because think about it, when 6 or 7 people get smoked from Corona, I mean, that's like a mini outbreak in the family. And I'm not trying to be funny. I know I said smoked, but it was a poor word choice for sure.
No, COVID definitely lives rent free in that house.
Yeah.
It's on the walls and shit, apparently.
Are we doing a bit out of this, Nigel? What are we doing?
No. It's not funny at all.
We can't do a bit out of this.
It's not funny.
We can't, dude. We can't do this.
It's not funny at all. It's really not. It's serious.
Not.
And obviously I think that he's going to be okay. I think that he's going to make a full recovery. But it is a shame that, and I think what you said last episode really stuck with me, is like COVID is the wild card of the season. That's going to be factoring into how we remember these teams and how the playoffs go and stuff.
I don't know how the postponed games are going to be made up for or accounted for.
They're not going to be.
So it's just tacked off the. Well, I mean, I guess that actually kind of makes sense. You either put them on to the end of the season or just don't count them at all.
Unfortunately, I bet you they just. I mean, they said they're postponed, but like, history repeats itself. We've seen this type of thing before. They usually don't. If your team is missing 10 games, there's no way, that you're making up 10 games at the end of the season.
That's true.
They're trying to get the season to end as quickly as possible because they want next season to start as early as possible. So I bet you they cut off the season and they go straight into the playoffs. They might have, like they did in the bubble, they might have a couple play-in games just because there's been so many missed games. But, unless this vaccine becomes more widespread than it currently is, and quickly, I think you're looking at just a bummy season at the end,
You're not liking the way the season's looking so far? Not so far, but in the future, you don't like the forecast?
I'm not liking the fact that we're missing games.
Well, I mean, obviously, that's not ideal at all. If you're missing NBA games, that's not right. Like, Adam Silver's not sitting there being like, all right. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm sure he's like,
they'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say most of the teams that have missed. I hate Zoom so much with this. Like,
I know,
you know what I'm saying?
Zoom sucks.
With most of the games that have been postponed, it's been teams that are, and especially every team has a chance in the East this year. but it's been teams that are in the fold. 76ers. The Thunder really aren't in the fold all that much, but there have been several games where there have been teams that are using positive momentum. Positive momentum is on their side, and it's something like that. You have to think about the way that throws off a team moving forward, the way that obviously it affects the personnel going out on the court, but also just the way it affects the culture of a team. You know,
Right.
if you're down men and you're getting trampled, and you know what I'm saying, it's all very demoralizing, not immoralizing. So that's just something you have to take into account too. It's very. I hope this is not the end, and I don't think it is the end of the NBA for this season, because I have a feeling that if we would have seen the NBA end, it would have happened already.
I don't
want to like postpone the season.
Oh,
I guess that's a better terminology for it. Postpone the season.
I mean, you were talking. Me and you were talking, and you suggested that a break might be a good idea.
Not an entire break of like
not like a 14-day hiatus.
That's what I'm saying. Just get everything sorted. Right. You can't not like what happened last year, but like a 14-day break. Maybe, you know what? I'll give them like 3 weeks to just get everything settled, get everyone tested, mandate that everyone stays inside. You know, anyone that is not allowed to play, is not cleared to play, has to go home. I mean, we've seen them enforce that rule with guys that have tested positive just from tests this year, that they're not allowed to travel with the team. So I think you do that. I think you take a break now, because it's at the point where you're getting positive tests, and even some I'll just say repositive, some secondary, well, also contact tracing, but also tests that have come back positive even after the first time. So guys that have retested, there you go, retested positive. I don't know why I can't speak. Guys that have retested positive. So if you take the time now and you really make sure everything's good and everything's settled, you might get some tests moving forward, or you might get some positive, cases moving forward, but it would be a great way to curtail the situation, in my personal opinion.
You know what? I agreed with you for a while, but now that I'm thinking about it, I might have to disagree with you a little bit. And I'll tell you why. It's just because I think that it's been proven over this season, especially, that there is no controlling these players. For real, there is no controlling. There's no controlling these dudes. You know, they're going out and they're doing whatever they want. Kyrie Irving is going out and party. You know what I'm saying? Imagine you gave him 3 weeks off. Where will he go? Where has he been? And that's not just one person. You got to think that's 250 people, you know,
well,
about, give or take. That, you know, you're talking about coaching staff, you're talking about players, you're talking about trainers. We're talking about people who are vital to this thing. At least when they're playing, when they're scheduled to come in for games, you know that they have to be in the area. You know what I'm saying? You know that they're tired after the game, and they're going to sleep at night, hopefully. You know what I'm saying? You know, they're taking their off day and relaxing. They're not going out drinking or doing something irresponsible. You give them 3 weeks off, who knows what they come back with.
Well, that's the thing, too. You schedule a COVID test. You have everyone show up. And like you said, they're not going to – some of the guys might not listen, but the NBA could then take that as, listen, if you don't want to be responsible enough to listen to guidelines and show up and be diligent, then clearly that means by proxy that you don't want to play bad enough. So listen, here's the thing. If I'm Adam Silver, I'm saying 3 weeks you guys got. You're going to stay inside. You're not going to go to any maskless parties. You're not going to put yourself in harm's way. You're not going to put your families in harm's way. You're going to come back, and we're going to put you through not rigorous testing, but 1 or 2 tests. You test positive for any of those tests at all, you better have a real good reason lined up for why you tested positive. You know what I'm saying? Unlike,
or else what, though?
Well, that's also true. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you could honestly, I think if the players buy into the system enough, they would figure out a way not to test positive, right? Not to go out, not to, obviously outside of random chance, you can only be so careful. But what I was thinking for the situation you said with a guy like Kyrie that just goes out and parties, those guys, it's like, all right, you tested positive, you party, we saw you on camera, good, bye, done.
For the season? And then you pay the Nets millions of dollars for the asset that they're losing?
Nah, it's true. Well, I just think there's got to be a system where you can kind of it's tough. It's tough.
There is a system. The bubble, it exists. They did it. They proved that it worked.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're too scared to do it this season. And
that's true.
I don't necessarily disagree. I don't know if the bubble was the right way to go forward for this season, but I say you give these people 3 weeks off, you have to come back in the bubble at least.
Yeah, that could work. You just reset everything and then you go back into the bubble. Same place?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. I could see that. I could definitely see that. Because I was trying to make the argument in my head, and then I saw the little holes that you could poke. Because some guy could easily, in the same way that Kyrie could go out and party without a mask, some guy could be getting groceries and just catch it by happenstance. And a guy like LeBron James shows up. Obviously, they give LeBron James the pampering treatment, so he might not be cut. But I don't know. It's just
you're gonna cut LeBron James? Then your revenue's fucked. Listen, and then you got to pay the Lakers however much money he was supposed to make that year, so that they, you know what I'm saying, so they can
true.
do that for other things. It's especially in a players' league, the biggest question is, but when you're trying to enforce rules in a time like this, is then what? You know, don't do this. All right, what's the punishment? They fined Kyrie Irving $50,000. Do you think he gives a shit? I don't think he cared at all. Then he went and bought George Floyd's family a house, which was excellent, great. Good. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But as you can see, he was fined $50,000, and he still gave up more money, like it didn't happen. Like he was willing to buy other people things, for the sake of what he felt was right in his heart. It doesn't matter that he lost the $50,000 because he went out and bought a house for other people.
That's true. Yeah, that was probably nothing to him.
Yeah,
you're right.
What's $50,000 really to Kyrie?
To Kyrie, probably nothing. Probably finds that in the seat of his couch.
For real, on some real, and that's a big fine. Who's the owner of the Mavericks? What's his name? Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban. There you go.
Mark Cuban has lost like millions of, or like I think it's close to $1 million in just fines. And in his wise words, they had him in the middle of the court, and they were like, "Hey, you got fined $15,000 for saying the F word. Do you have anything to say about that?" And he was like, "Fuck," like, you know what I'm saying? Like these people, they don't care.
That's also a Mac Daddy move by Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is walking out of that arena like, oh, I forgot I didn't have the. Damn it, man! That's the second time I've done that on this podcast where I was about to pop the Kawhi laugh and I didn't have the volume on my effects. Damn it! But yes, Mark Cuban was walking out of there to the nefarious Kawhi laugh. Like, he's like, "Fuck, oh ha 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 ha," and then he just walked out. But yeah, listen, it's to these guys, it's chump change. I the more I think about it, the more I like your idea. Can my idea? That was a terrible idea. I don't know what I was thinking. You know what I'm saying? You're just going off of the fact that these players are like saying to the players, "Hey, we're gonna let you loose for a couple of weeks. Be good." Like no, that's not gonna. No. There's gonna be the players like I'm trying to think of a good player, probably like LeBron that would stay on the straight and narrow because he knows he has a good shot at winning a championship. But you have guys maybe now that would change with Harden and Kyrie, but Harden and Kyrie now would probably be out places and doing things. Harden with little baby, Kyrie with his family. So yeah, I know what you mean. I just think that there needs to be a way where they can slow everything down and just get everything under control, because right now it's spiraling. It's not spiraling quickly, but it's beginning to. There's like a trickle down effect, right?
We're definitely seeing some aftermath. I
don't even know if it's aftermath. It might just be now math.
The current math.
The current math. Trigonometry, bro. And this isn't adding up, right? So listen, they got to figure out something. I'm sure Adam Silver will. I've always been complimentary of the way Adam Silver has handled COVID. He did it the best out of all the other sports commissioners. The NBA did it all the best out of all the other sports leagues. So I'm not really worried. I just hope. I am kind of worried. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to cap. I'm a little bit worried because it's like we do a basketball podcast, and also I love watching NBA basketball. So it's like if we don't have this to, what I'm saying, we don't have the NBA to report on, it's like, what are we gonna do for this podcast?
I think we're always gonna be in for a job, to be honest, with the NBA. I don't think it matters what's happening in the NBA. I think that there will be things to talk about no matter what.
It's a drama laden league. You know what I'm saying? Shaq will probably say something to like what? JaVale McGee again. We could talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I think no matter what, I mean, there's just so many characters to speak on in the NBA that I think that, and we enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's ever going to be something. I mean, we thought we were going to have a slow off season. That wasn't true.
That was not true. That's yeah. That's true.
Know?
It's true that it was not true.
Correct.
Yeah. That's
Correct,
crazy.
Mundo.
That's crazy to think. And it also just flew by. I mean, we're already 2 weeks into the season at this point, or a week and a half.
They started before Christmas.
Yes, we're
it's the 18th. We're like a month in, bro.
Jesus, man. Jeez. And we're almost 10 games in. I think it's going to be the 10th game either today or tomorrow. Some of the 10th games. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I think some teams are over 10. I'm not 100%
probably
sure though. Yeah.
Knowing they go every day, so yeah, probably. But crazy. Still the early season, the stages of the season. I do, speaking of drama, real quick to round out the episode, and then I feel like we should kind of address not what's going on or what's going to be, teased, but I just want to close out with some closing thoughts about the nature of podcasting, what we're doing in the space, what we want to be doing in the space. So I want to get to that, but I also want to talk for probably the last basketball related topic, unless I have anything else here. No. Okay. We've gotten through everything except the Kevin Porter Jr. incident. He reportedly got back to his locker room, found that his locker was given to now Cavalier Taurean Prince, former Brooklyn Nets player, was enraged because his locker was moved. I guess there's like different sections of the locker room, so the star players are bunched together. Apparently the guys at the end of the bench have their own section of lockers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And his had been moved to that end of the room. So he got very angry. He reportedly started screaming and then threw food. Another thing I didn't know about NBA locker rooms is they had food. I don't know if he just brought in his own food, like he had a microwavable plastic case of like whatever, and he was just like, man, and he just took it out of his locker and chucked it, or they had hors d'oeuvres or something in there. Either way, he chucked food, and he is now being released by the Cavaliers. Kevin Porter Jr. in his second year in the NBA showed a lot of promise his rookie year. I think he's a baller. I think he'll end up somewhere else. It was just a very odd situation that it just kind of popped up on my phone today. It's like, what happened?
Yeah. The Cavs front office, they need to start thinking about what food they put out for their people.
Because first the soup.
Cavaliers, they have a habit of getting really mad and throwing it. All right. And I think you're right about the locker situation. I do believe that most teams have like a circular locker room.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, you walk in, and your stuff, your stuff is just taken out and put somewhere else. And this guy who just showed up, it's like, where's my damn respect? I want my damn respect. Like LeBron James.
Yeah.
But obviously he freaked out. We don't know what kind of day he was having. We don't know what kind of night he had before that.
Context is
who knows? Everyone has bad days. However, that's unacceptable behavior from a grown man.
Yeah. I don't know if my locker got moved if I would start throwing a hissy fit and throw food at someone or something.
Yeah.
Now we don't know if I'd get moderately annoyed and probably go talk to someone about it. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know if I'd take out my tuna casserole that I had chilling in my locker there and chuck it. We don't know if he chucked it at a person or just on the floor. Somehow chucking it on the floor makes it almost more hilarious. Like, and he like tosses it on the floor.
Well, also, we got to remember who's reporting on this. Chucking it could have also been like, just like, blowing it off.
He like tapped it off or
yeah,
something with his hand.
Who knows?
True.
Who knows, really? Unless you were flying the wall in the room, you don't know.
That would be so horrifying. You're an NBA, you're an ESPN reporter, and then Kevin Porter Jr. is like, "Fuck this," and it's just like,
bro, if I was a reporter or if I worked in the Cavaliers like front office, I'd be like keeping an eye out for food like in the air. Like that's what I would
PTSD.
be like. I'd be like looking behind me every once in a while just to make sure there wasn't a loose Cavalier back there, throwing food.
Yeah.
But listen, you can't act like that. Is releasing him the right thing to do?
Mm-mm.
They didn't release J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith was also probably more valuable.
Yeah. I mean, listen, here's the thing, right? I think he'll get picked up by another team. I don't think he should worry about whether or not his NBA career is over. Like I said, he's a baller and he's shown a lot of promise. I think if the Cavs front office noticed that, there have been other front offices that have noticed his acumen as a player. So I don't think he has to worry in that regard. I do agree with you. It seemed very knee-jerk. Or it's like the player has a temper tantrum. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins has done, I'm sure, far worse. And he's remained with organizations. He hasn't been, I mean, listen, he hasn't been cut, but there's certainly, I guess the point I'm trying to make is there's certainly less strict punishments that you can enact on someone. Maybe they have to, they have a suspension or something from like 5 games. I don't see how cutting him really helps, especially if they're the Cleveland Cavaliers. You know what I'm saying? You need all the help you can get in terms of personnel, and you're going out there because a guy, you know what? And honestly, I can see Kevin Porter Jr.'s side of the situation. Like you said, this guy comes in, he gets traded from the Nets, and he gets my locker immediately. How does that make any sense? How is that fair? I get that I'm a second-year player, but I've shown promise, more promise than this guy that hasn't even played on our team yet. And you're moving my stuff? I could 100% see why someone would get angry at that. But you have to be a grown man. You have to be an adult. And you can't give anyone any excuses or any leeway to be able to say, okay, we want to trade you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. The entire situation is very funny.
I'm sure that this was not an isolated event, though. I think that there has to be something that goes on before this, before the Cavaliers decide to just move his locker. I'm sure there are things. Right. I'm sure there are things. I'm sure there are things that happened before this, leading up to this, to where like he's like where the next step is to throw food. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure that, like you said, I'm sure that there were things that went on before this that led up to him getting dropped. However, this is probably the biggest thing. This is probably the last straw, and they were like, "All right, he obviously doesn't fit on this team."
Well, I know that
and you made the comparison to Marcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins is very valuable. You put up with his shit for a lot longer because of what he does for you on the court. You know what I'm saying? And I know you know that, but at the same time, it's like, I'm sure that there was stuff leading up to it. There's no way that this was just like, he was just like the best guy ever. And then one day he throws food and they're like, yeah, no, we don't need you. Like, there's no way.
There were charges against him from the police department that had been dropped altogether in previous, I believe it was in his first year, it might have been in college, I can't remember, but I know that there were some outstanding allegations or convictions against him. Something I had read up on it. I know there was possession of marijuana, and I want to say possession of a firearm, but I don't want to put that on him. So please, everyone listening, do the research. There were definitely prior convictions under his name, but they were dropped. He was not convicted of them. I guess they wouldn't be convictions then, but they were attempted convictions. So. Right. You could be right, Nigel. We don't know what this guy's temperament. As we always say, we don't know what went on inside the locker room. We said the same thing when the Celtics had that big blowout. Remember that last year? Seems like a million years ago at this point, but yeah. We don't know what happened in the situation, but I thought it was a little funny thing to the segment kind of bring in and talk about, because I'm honestly, and this, listen, we'll kind of bridge this into our last little topic for today, which is the fact that we chose probably one of the best sports in the world ever to podcast on.
Absolutely.
Like, there is so much. Sometimes I feel like I like reporting on the culture and the drama of NBA basketball more than I like actually giving predictions or takes. You know what I'm saying? And that's not all the time, but it's just, it's fun. It's juicy content,
Yeah, and it's something. It's filled with tradition and history, and it's something that I feel like a lot of different people can be proud of. No matter what city you're from, you have a basketball team. You have your favorite players. You have players you love to hate. It's just it's a beautiful sport, and I think we really did cash out picking this one to really be passionate about.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was gonna say you hit the nail on the head, is the fact that this sport is a culture goldmine. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so, there's so much proudness and just, I was gonna say pride, then I kind of messed up. Pride and so much of a world around the sport and almost like a community. And like with baseball, like sure there are people that watch baseball that like it, but I feel like with basketball, it's much more of an equalizer in the world. You go to anywhere, any place, could be Senegal, could be France, could be Britain, could be here, it could be in China. People are playing basketball. So it's a very, I love it. I love the sport and I love doing a podcast on it. And I think also, just if you want to talk about coincidences, we picked the perfect niche because there are not a lot of basketball podcasts at the moment. So we have the route to get very successful with this. And I think we honestly will. I'm going to call my shot now. But that's what I just wanted to talk about. I mean, podcasting is an art form too. If you want to talk about things that we chose, this, the medium is opening up. Spotify, while they haven't handled it the best, they went in big on podcast acquisitions, 700 million in 2020, just alone. One of which being The Ringer, which is a basketball podcasting network. So, we chose a great topic to podcast on, and we chose a great field to get into. I'm not saying that this is the only venture you have going on, but I'm saying this is what we do. So I think we chose, I don't want to say it's more than a coincidence, but it's definitely, I've been thinking about that. It's more than it's pushing me along. It's giving me vigor, knowing that we really have. And listen, the season that we came in on.
Yeah, I know. What a banger.
Just like
there's a lot to talk about. You know what I'm saying? Even when the NBA was taking a hiatus, we still had stuff to talk about. And look at where it came from. Me and you just bullshitting about basketball for hours at a time. You know what I'm saying? It's like we should just do this on mic.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah. That was your vision, and I appreciate you including me in that. Bringing me along.
And we've only gotten better. It's something that I don't want to get too official. I don't want to get to the point where we're just basically first take, but I feel like we're finding that blend of casualness and also basketball, like professional. Like I like to say, I think in the STF trailer on the podcasting app on the RSS feed, we talked about. I said it was we blended the professionalism of two retired athletes talking on ESPN about a sport that they used to play, and two guys sitting on a couch watching a sport that they've also, or that they never even played. So it's like it's a good mixture that we're finding here. So I'm glad that we embarked on this journey. As we said, big announcement coming up. So there's only more to come. And yeah, I mean, any closing thoughts before we wrap it up around here?
Thank you. We'll see you in push month. See you in February.
Yeah. So we got because then we got one more, so that we're not going next week, and that brings us straight into February. So we'll see you in. Well, are we going to be doing the first week of February?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I assume so, right? Yeah, that's what we.
Yeah, because then everything should be set. Okay. All right. No, I was just thinking in my head because of this, the setup that we have, if it was going to be available, but it should be, in theory. I gotta text my sources.
What is? Yeah. Hold on. Let me grab this mouse over here. February, the 1st of February is a Monday, and we record on Mondays.
Yeah. Yes. So okay. So we'll definitely.
Theoretically speaking, is there a 31st this month? Yes, there.
It might be the 31st.
Awesome. No.
Oh, it's
Monday's the first. Monday's the first.
Okay. I'm bad with months.
Yeah, me too.
So we'll be back the 31st, I guess. So it'll be right before, or no, excuse me, the 1st. No, there is a 31st, but the Monday is the 1st. We'll be back in February. I'm going to shut my mouth. Thank you guys so much for listening.
And stay tuned. Stick to the Instagram. Watch for countdowns. Watch for announcements. And see you guys next month.
Yeah, well, it's Coop TV, Nigel.ap, and then Coop TV with 3 O's, and then Spreading the Floor Pod on Instagram.
Spreading the Floor Podcast, all under one name.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Peace out.